Do you avoid asking your partner for help, worrying that you'll be seen as too needy or demanding? Have you ever felt guilty for needing support, even when you're super overwhelmed? Now, what if I told you that asking for help doesn't make you weak, but actually strengthens your relationships? And if these questions hit home, this conversation is for you. Welcome to Create Your Happy. Happiness Hussy Christy Holt here, ready for some real talk about creating healthy, loving relationships that make you truly fucking happy. Let's dive in. Hey there, gorgeous human. Welcome back to the Create Your Happy podcast, your go-to space for creating conscious, loving relationships. I'm Christy, your happiness hussy, and I am here to guide you on this messy, fucking beautiful adventure called life. Today's episode is all about something that I know many of us struggle with, and that is asking for support from your partner, but without feeling guilty. Right? Now, if you have ever hesitated to ask for what you need because you're thinking it's too much or that you should be able to handle it all yourself, this conversation is for you. Now, before you even ask for support, let's lay the groundwork here, because the first step is actually getting clarity on what you actually need. Taking a moment to really check in with yourself, asking yourself, what do I need help with? And when do I most feel overwhelmed? Understanding your needs is key because you can't communicate what you don't know yourself. Then, once you're clear on what you need, it's actually about finding the right moment and the right person to ask. Timing is crucial. So instead of dropping a request on your partner when they might be already stressed or distracted, try choosing a time when both of you can be present and open to one another. A calm environment can make a world of difference when it comes to having your requests heard. Now, let's talk about expectations, because how often do we set ourselves up for disappointment by expecting our partner to react in a certain way or to do things exactly the way that we would? Expectations create unnecessary suffering because they're often based on our preferences, not on what's realistic or fair or reasonable for our partner. Now, this tiny shift, letting go of the attachment, can lead to a lot more peace, a lot less resentment, and a lot more success in getting those needs met. We may also have created some personal expectations around us asking too much. This can stem from past experience. But the truth is that often we're not asking, too much. We're actually just asking the wrong person or at the wrong time, because your needs are never going to be too much for the right person. Though we do still have to remember that sometimes others simply cannot meet all of our needs. That's far too large a burden for anyone to carry. So when expectations aren't met, it often leads to disappointment and resentment. And instead of expecting your partner to know exactly what you need, practice clear communication and let go of the attachment on how they should respond. If you've ever thought, they should know I'm overwhelmed and need help, I invite you to remind yourself that people have different capacities and awareness levels, and instead of assuming, it behooves you to state what you need as clearly as possible. Now, maybe you have found yourself in a situation where you've asked for help before, and it felt like your request fell on deaf ears. You might be thinking, why even bother asking again, because it doesn't work out just like last time. It can be so easy to start feeling like a burden in that situation, which can then in turn make you hesitate to ask for support again. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? This is where some self-compassion comes in. Take a step back. Give yourself some grace. Reflecting on why some of those past requests didn't pan out can really serve you in moving forward. Was it the timing? Were you really clear about what it was that you needed? Or maybe was your partner just not in the right space to meet that need? Instead of focusing on what went wrong, however, I invite you to try and see these experiences as learning moments. And then, armed with more clarity, more patience, and more compassion for yourself, you can hopefully find the courage to start asking again. This time, from a place of deeper understanding of your needs and an ability to communicate them much more clearly. Now remember, asking for support isn't about pushing your partner into action. We don't want to convince or coerce anybody. Rather, it's about creating a partnership where both of you can thrive together. So don't continue to carry the weight of feeling like a burden. Set that shit down. All right? Now let's talk about how to phrase your request for maximum success, okay? Rather than making demands or setting up unreasonable expectations, both of which typically don't get the intended results, I invite you to consider using phrases like the following. I'd really like to, and then state the thing that you'd really like to have or do. The second one is, I'd really appreciate your help with. Potentially you could try, it would mean a lot to me if you could, or maybe I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and I'd love your support with. Now, these phrases are rooted in desire rather than in a demand. You're expressing what you need and then trusting your partner to step up as they're capable and willing. Now, a big reason that we actually feel let down in relationships is because we often expect our partner to read our minds. Newsflash, they can't. It's very unfair for us to assume that they know what we would need without us communicating it. So once we're clear, we can communicate it, then our partner has a much higher likelihood of being able to address it for us. Now, let's talk about guilt for a moment, because the guilt is a biggie. We want to know, where does it come from and how can we release it? That nagging feeling of, who am I to ask for this? Or that feeling like a burden often comes from some deep-seated beliefs that we're supposed to handle everything on our own, especially as women who are taught to be the nurturers and the caregivers. We are not really supposed to be asking for help, right? We're the ones that are supposed to be giving it. But here's the truth. That guilt is not helpful. It actually keeps you stuck and small, preventing you from actually getting the support that you deserve. So, while releasing guilt isn't as simple as flicking a switch, it's absolutely possible. Number one, start by acknowledging your guilt without judgment, right? Simply sit back and notice when it arises. Now, instead of letting that guilt control you, get curious. Ask yourself, where is this actually coming from? Was it something that I learned growing up? Is it a belief that was helping me in the past but is no longer serving me now? Recognize that this guilt is likely based on outdated stories and that you have the power to rewrite the endings. Now, in my episode about forgiveness, I talked about how forgiving yourself is the key to moving forward, and that applies here too. Forgiving yourself for believing that you have to do it alone allows you to open up the possibility to then consciously choose to let that guilt go, to set that burden down. You might even say something to yourself like, I forgive myself for feeling guilty about needing help. I release this guilt and I embrace my worthiness of support. Now, this, of course, releasing the guilt is an ongoing practice, but in time, you'll notice with a bit of practice, you'll start to see that that guilt is losing its power. So I invite you to use the same tools to forgive yourself for needing help and to give yourself permission to ask for it. And if you need a few more practical tools for letting go of guilt, be sure to catch my episode called Let That Shit Go. Now, this episode was designed around releasing grudges, but these same tools will serve you extremely well in your endeavor to release guilt as well. You deserve to be free. And one more little thing that you could start doing right now is a tiny perspective shift. I invite you to replace guilt with gratitude. And instead of feeling bad or burdensome for needing help, I invite you to just feel grateful that you are brave enough to ask for it and brave enough to receive. Gratitude will shift your focus from all of the things that you feel like you're lacking or not good enough for or unworthy of to what you're open to receiving and what you are really deserving of. So a tiny perspective shift can go a long way. And here's another tiny little thing to remember, because asking for support isn't just about you. It's actually also a gift for your partner. I want you to think about for a moment how good it feels when you are able to help someone that you love. And when you ask for support, remind yourself that you're giving them the opportunity to show up for you. And you're giving them that opportunity to feel that same sense of fulfillment that you do when you get to give. So don't deny others that gift by trying to do everything on your own. Now, of course, you might be wondering, what if my partner says no? Or what if they don't respond in the way that I hope? Now, these are valid concerns. It's probably going to happen from time to time. But remember, asking for support is simply about making a request, not about that attachment to the outcome. So I invite you, if this is coming up for you, to simply trust that your partner will respond in the best way that they can. And maybe even be open to the possibility that their no might actually come with a creative suggestion or another way to meet your need. And if you're still asking, how can I manage guilt when I feel like I should be able to handle it all myself? My answer to that, number one, be stop shooting on yourself, right? Acknowledge the feeling and then release the expectation that you have to carry it all. That's not realistic. Relationships are meant to be partnerships, and you are allowed and even encouraged to seek support within them. Permission to be a human with needs granted. So here is a simple little exercise for you, especially for those of you stuck in the muck around asking for help. I invite you to take out your journal and spend just a few minutes writing down a few things that you need help most with right now. And get clear on it, like get really fucking clear on it. Even allow yourself to dive deeper and find out what unmet needs might be below the surface of your request and see if you can find some creative ways that you might actually have those needs met. And then practice asking for support. You might want to start small. Maybe it's just using one of the phrases that I shared earlier to ask your partner to maybe take on a chore around the house, or to invite them simply to be there to listen to you. And the most important piece of this that I want you to reflect on is I invite you to notice how it feels to ask. And if you need it, remind yourself that you are worthy of that support and that you deserve it. Sometimes we don't actually know what it is that we really need. And this is a problem because you can't ask for it if you don't know what it is. And so sometimes even the things that we think we know we need, there can be another layer to it. So this is, again, that invitation to get curious. What's below the surface? What unmet needs are you trying to get met through this request? And you may even want to consider, are there some other ways that these needs could be met? Maybe you can meet them all on your own. Now, for those of you who desire to explore understanding your needs and how to communicate them in a clearer way, my Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal is a guided practice over 90 days designed to help you connect more deeply with yourself. It's the perfect companion to help you to gain clarity around what it is that you need and want, which will then in turn help you to build confidence in asking for what you need. And before we wrap up this episode, I am so excited to announce that my upcoming book, Love Unstuck, will be launching this fall. And it is so packed with tools and insights to help you to create the life and love that you desire and deserve. Please make sure that you're on the wait list now so that you do not miss out on the special launch day offer. The details will be in the show notes below. Now, as we wrap up, remember, asking for support isn't about being weak or needy. It's actually about recognizing your humanity and allowing your partner, inviting your partner to be part of your journey. Getting clear on what you need, communicating it openly, and letting go of the guilt are all steps that will take you closer to a stronger, more connected relationship. And of course, don't forget, those expectations, those pesky expectations often lead to disappointment and resentment. So go on and release them and embrace what is. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I trust that you've taken away some insights or tools that will help you to create the life, love, and legacy of your dreams. You're not alone in this. We are all navigating this messy, fucking beautiful adventure of life together. I love you. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we? Thanks for listening. Sharing what I know about creating healthy, happy relationships means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, comment, leave a review, and share it with a friend. For additional links and resources and ways to connect, please check the show notes. Now get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.